Have you ever wondered if an unexpected encounter could change everything in your life? Have you ever thought that perhaps, at some point, the universe placed someone in your path not by chance, but because you needed to hear a specific message? How many times have you felt lost, silently asking for an answer, not knowing where to look, not knowing what to do, believing that no one could hear your plea? What if I told you that sometimes the universe responds in ways so mysterious that only later do you realize it wasn't a coincidence, it was destiny? This is the true story of Aisha Rahman, a Southeast Asian woman who, at 32, believed her life had reached a dead end. What she didn't know was that the universe was about to answer that silent plea she had made countless times, and that the response would come through a complete stranger. Aisha was born in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, into a traditional family, surrounded by values of discipline and expectations. From a young age, she had always been hardworking, studious, someone who believed that if she worked hard, she could achieve a better life. But over the years, she realized that effort didn't always bring the rewards she imagined. At 32, her routine seemed like an endless cycle. Waking up early, working as a freelance graphic designer in front of her computer, dealing with demanding clients who often didn't value her work, and at the end of the month, barely having enough money to cover her bills. There was no stability, no recognition, and above all, no purpose. It was as if she were surviving rather than truly living. Despite appearing strong and independent, Aisha carried a heavy burden inside. Many nights she asked herself, "Is this it? Is this the life I will live forever?" What hurt the most wasn't the lack of money, but the feeling that her life had no direction. She saw friends building families, traveling the world, thriving in stable careers, and wondered what was wrong with her. Deep down, Aisha believed there was something greater, an energy, an invisible force that governed the world. She had heard of the law of attraction, but always regarded it as something distant, almost too mystical to be real. For her, it was hard to believe that thoughts could shape reality. And yet there were moments when life gave her small signs, as if trying to get her attention. On some nights, she dreamt of strange symbols, a door opening, a road lit by golden lights, strangers smiling at her. And when she woke up, she felt as though she had received a message but couldn't decipher it. Other times, while walking through the busy streets of Kuala Lumpur, she would notice repeating numbers on car plates, digital clocks, and bus ads. The number 1111 appeared so often that she began to wonder if it truly had meaning. Despite these signs, Aisha's life remained full of doubt and frustration. She had tried to change. She enrolled in new courses, tried to start a business, meditated a few times, but always gave up halfway. It felt as though the universe was deaf to her plea for help. Then came the breaking point. On a hot Friday afternoon, after hours of trying to finalize a project for a client who constantly changed their mind, Aisha felt she had no strength left. Her computer froze, the internet went down, and she broke into tears. She sat on the floor of her small apartment, hands covering her face, repeating to herself, "I can't take this anymore. I don't know what to do. I need an answer." In that moment, she didn't say a formal prayer, nor follow a ritual. She simply let out a sincere, heartfelt plea. "Universe, if you really exist, please show me a way. Show me that I am not alone. Send me a sign, anything." Her crying gradually subsided, and a strange silence enveloped her. It was as if, in that instant, something had been heard. Aisha didn't know it yet, but that simple request would mark the beginning of a turning point she could never have imagined. In the following days, life seemed to continue as usual, but Aisha was more attentive. Every detail caught her eye, a phrase on a billboard, a song playing on the radio, even the way the wind moved the trees as she walked. It was as if the world had gained a new hue, as if it were setting the stage for something important. And then it happened. On a Sunday morning, Aisha decided to leave her home and walk to a nearby cafe in central Kuala Lumpur. She had no plans, she just wanted to breathe and disconnect from the weight of the week. The cafe wasn't special, just a simple place with white walls, a few hanging plants, and wooden tables. But somehow, that space felt welcoming. While waiting for her coffee, she observed the people around her. Couples laughing, young people discussing ideas, tourists looking at maps. And in this ordinary setting, something extraordinary occurred. Aisha noticed an older man sitting alone at a corner table. He had a calm, serene expression, as if he carried an inner peace that was hard to describe. He wasn't Malaysian, he seemed foreign, perhaps European or Middle Eastern. Suddenly, as Aisha scrolled through her phone, she heard a calm, firm voice. "You seem to be carrying a lot of weight on your shoulders." Startled, she looked up. It was the man at the neighboring table. At first, she didn't react. How could someone who had never seen her know something so intimate? He smiled kindly and continued, "Sometimes, when life feels too heavy, it's because we're trying to carry everything on our own. But you're not alone." Those words touched Aisha in an inexplicable way. She didn't know this man, but it was as if he had heard her silent plea, as if it were the answer the universe had sent. At that moment, Aisha felt that something greater was in motion. The conversation that followed would completely change her life. But that's something you'll discover in the next parts of this story. Have you ever had the feeling that someone you've never seen before seemed to know your soul? Have you ever heard words so simple yet that sounded exactly like what you needed to hear at that moment in your life? This is the kind of experience that defies any logical explanation, and it's exactly what happened to Aisha Rahman in that cafe in Kuala Lumpur. The man who had addressed her seemed to possess a supernatural calm. His voice was firm yet serene, conveying trust and reassurance. He seemed to carry the wisdom of many years, but without arrogance, only presence. Aisha, surprised, took a few seconds to respond. She was confused. How could someone who didn't even know her say something that described so accurately what she felt? After a brief silence, she murmured, Excuse me, were you talking to me?" He smiled gently and nodded. "Yes. You seem to be struggling with something heavy, and I know what it's like to carry this burden. Sometimes it is the universe itself that places us in the exact places and moments so that we can find answers." Those words made Aisha's heart race. It seemed impossible that this man had mentioned exactly what she had been silently asking for in recent days. Without understanding why, she felt a deep need to continue the conversation. It was as if something invisible was pushing her forward, as if a voice inside her said, "Pay attention, this is not a coincidence." With a mix of apprehension and curiosity, she stood up and asked, "May I sit with you?" "Of course," he replied with a welcoming gesture. And so began a conversation that would change everything. The man introduced himself as Daniel, a European traveler who had been through various countries in Southeast Asia over the past few years. He said he had no fixed destination. He simply followed the signs, believing that the universe always guided him to where he should be. Aisha was intrigued. "Do you really believe the universe guides us?" she asked, almost sarcastically, as if it was still hard to accept the idea. Daniel looked her in the eyes with remarkable serenity and replied, "I don't just believe it, I've lived it. Every time I trusted, the answers came. And you, Aisha, yes, I know your name because I heard it when they took your coffee order. You also asked for an answer, didn't you?" Her heart stopped for a moment. How could this man know? The night before, she had silently pleaded, "Universe, send me a sign." And now she was facing someone who seemed to hear what no one else could. She took a deep breath, trying not to show the whirlwind of emotions inside her, and replied sincerely, "Yes, I did. I asked for something, anything, because I don't know what else to do with my life."
Daniel smiled, as if that were the confirmation he had been waiting for. Then here we are. The universe heard you and brought you to this moment. Aisha couldn't hold back the tears that silently ran down her face. It was as if a part of her, long suppressed, had finally been seen. He then leaned slightly forward and said, "The first thing you need to understand is that you are not alone. We never are. There is a force, an energy, that responds to what we truly ask for, but only when we ask sincerely from the depths of our soul. That is what you did yesterday." Aisha remained silent, absorbing every word. Daniel continued, "You've heard of the law of attraction, haven't you?" She nodded affirmatively, but hesitantly. "I've heard of it, but I don't know if I believe it. It seems too good to be true." "It's not a matter of belief, it's a matter of awareness. The law of attraction doesn't depend on blind faith. It's already happening. Every thought, every emotion you hold is creating the reality you live. The problem is that most people create unconsciously, trapped by fear, scarcity, and doubt." The words resonated deeply with Aisha. She recognized in herself that very trap. How many times had she repeated mental phrases like, "This won't work, I can't do it, I'm never lucky"? Perhaps unknowingly, she had been reinforcing the stagnant life she so desperately wanted to change. "But how can I change this?" she asked, almost in a whisper. Daniel looked her firmly and replied, "You need to start choosing what you feel and think with the same discipline with which you choose what to wear when you leave the house. You need to become intentional. The universe doesn't understand words, it understands vibrations. If you live vibrating scarcity, you attract more scarcity. If you learn to vibrate in gratitude, abundance, and certainty, everything starts to transform." Aisha remained silent, feeling a mix of resistance and hope. It sounded too simple, yet profoundly true. They talked for hours. Daniel shared his own experiences, moments when he seemed lost but miraculously found open doors, unexpected opportunities, and even people who appeared to offer exactly what he needed. Each story sounded like a reminder that the invisible could be real. And the more he spoke, the more Aisha realized it wasn't a coincidence he was there. That conversation was the universe's direct response to her plea. Before they parted, Daniel said something that would forever stay in her memory. "Remember, Aisha, you don't need to see the whole path. You just need to take the first step in the direction of what you desire, believing the road will reveal itself as you walk." She remained silent, absorbing those words like a mantra. When Daniel stood up and said goodbye, something curious happened. He simply walked out of the cafe and disappeared into the busy streets of Kuala Lumpur. He left no contact, asked for nothing in return, seemed to want nothing. It was as if he had completed the mission he was meant to fulfill there. Aisha sat for a few more minutes, staring at her empty cup, still trying to understand what had happened. Part of her wanted to believe it was just a coincidence, but another part knew with absolute certainty that it was the universe responding. In the following days, those words didn't leave her mind. You are not alone. The law of attraction is already happening, whether you want it or not. You only need to take the first step. It was as if Daniel had planted a seed inside her, a seed that was beginning to germinate. For the first time in a long while, Aisha felt a spark of hope. But fear also arose. What if it was just an illusion? What if nothing changed? The only way to find out was to try. And so, without knowing exactly where to start, Aisha decided she would put into practice everything she had heard. Even without proof, even without guarantees, she was willing to try. The universe had given her an answer through a stranger. Now it was her turn to act.
Have you ever felt torn between hope and doubt? Have you ever experienced that moment when everything inside you wants to believe in a new possibility, but your mind insists on repeating that it won't work out? This is one of the greatest challenges of any transformation, fighting against the old patterns that for so long have governed your life. It was exactly at this point that Aisha Rahman found herself after the conversation with Daniel. In the days following the encounter, she felt different. She couldn't explain it clearly, but something inside her had been ignited. It was as if she had received a spark of energy that lit the path, albeit timidly. Daniel's words echoed constantly in her mind. You just need to take the first step. But how to start? On Monday morning, Aisha woke up to the same routine as always. The sun filtered through the cracks in the curtains. The distant noise of Kuala Lumpur traffic mingled with the chirping of birds. While drinking her black coffee, she picked up a notebook she had bought months earlier and that had remained almost empty. Something urged her to write. She remembered a part of the conversation. The universe understands vibrations, not words, but writing helps you align your mind and heart. With some hesitation, she began. I choose to believe that my life can change. I deserve prosperity, peace, and happiness. The universe is guiding me. Thank you for what I already have and for what is still coming. When she finished, she felt a strange relief. For the first time, instead of complaining or lamenting, she had declared gratitude and hope. During that week, Aisha decided to create a small ritual. Every day, upon waking, she wrote down 3 things she was grateful for. Sometimes they were simple things, like the food on her table or the roof over her head. Other times, she remembered something bigger, like her mother's health or the silent support of a friend. At first, it felt forced. She caught herself thinking, this won't change anything. But curiously, as the days went by, she began to feel a subtle inner shift. Her energy was different. One day, while walking to the market, she noticed herself smiling for no reason. The colors of the flowers on the sidewalk seemed more vibrant, the sky bluer. It wasn't that her problems had disappeared. The bills were still there, the clients still demanding, but there was a new way of seeing things. And it was in this state that the first signs began to appear. On Thursday that week, Aisha received an unexpected message. A former client, with whom she had lost contact nearly 2 years earlier, reached out offering a well-paid project, and this time with far fewer demands. It was exactly the kind of opportunity she had been silently asking for. She was shocked. Her mind tried to rationalize. Maybe it's just a coincidence. But her heart knew. It was the universe's response to her first step. Aisha accepted the job, and as she completed the initial tasks, she couldn't help but think of Daniel's words. When you start vibrating in gratitude, doors open. Still, the doubts didn't disappear completely. One of the following nights, after a tiring day, Aisha sat in front of the mirror and asked herself, what if this is just luck? What if nothing really changes in the long run? The old voice of insecurity returned, trying to pull her back into her old patterns. But this time, she chose differently. Instead of giving in to fear, she took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and remembered the feeling she had when she first wrote in her notebook. She decided to trust, even without proof. It was at this point that Aisha discovered something powerful. Transformation doesn't happen all at once. It comes in layers, in small signs, in daily choices that may seem insignificant, but collectively change everything. In the following days, in addition to her gratitude practice, Aisha began doing visualizations. Before sleeping, she would close her eyes and imagine herself living a different life, working on creative projects that truly inspired her, traveling to new places, meeting people who valued her. At first, her mind resisted, showing images of failure and fear. But little by little, she managed to sustain those images longer until they began to feel real. And the most remarkable thing was that reality started to respond. In the second week, while at a co-working space, Aisha met a young entrepreneur named Mei Lin, who worked in digital marketing. The conversation started casually, but quickly developed. Mei Lin said she needed someone creative to develop art and visual materials for her brand, and Aisha seemed to be the right person. The contract was signed within a few days. It was the second significant job in less than 2 weeks, something that hadn't happened in months.
And more than the money, it was the feeling that the universe was genuinely placing the right people in her path. One night, while walking along the balcony of her small apartment, Aisha looked at the starry sky and felt an emotion she hadn't experienced in a long time: genuine hope. It was as if she could finally believe that her life was transforming. But as in any journey, challenges were still ahead. Amid new jobs and opportunities, Aisha noticed her mind still trying to sabotage her. When receiving a new client request, her first reaction was, "What if I can't handle it? What if they don't like it?" When bigger opportunities arose, fear followed. "Do I deserve this?" These thoughts were remnants of her old self, the version that believed she would never be enough. And many times she almost gave in to them. But whenever this happened, she remembered Daniel's words. The universe doesn't understand words, it understands vibrations. And then Aisha made a conscious effort to shift her focus. She took a deep breath, wrote again in her notebook, or played a song that made her feel joy. Gradually, she learned that she didn't need to fight negative thoughts. She just needed to choose to give more attention to positive ones. That was the key. Over time, she realized that life didn't change because external circumstances transformed first. It was the opposite. Her energy changed, and that made the world respond differently. And so, with each small step, Aisha began building a new version of herself. She still didn't know how far this journey would take her. She didn't yet realize that the encounter with Daniel had been only the beginning of a series of synchronicities that would irreversibly change her life. But at that moment, one thing was certain: the universe had answered, and she was finally willing to listen.
Have you ever felt that suddenly everything around you starts to align? That every little detail, every person, every opportunity seemed to be conspiring in your favor? That's exactly what happened to Aisha in the following weeks. After putting into practice the teaching she received from Daniel, her life began to respond in ways she could never have predicted. At first, the changes were subtle. Aisha noticed small signs: unexpected messages from friends offering help, ads for workshops or courses that seemed to speak directly to her needs, work opportunities appearing without her having to chase them. All of this made her feel that the universe was truly attentive to what she was vibrating. One morning, while having coffee in her apartment, Aisha noticed that an old client had sent an urgent design request. At first, the old anxiety surfaced: can I deliver on time? But this time, she remembered something essential that Daniel had said: you already have everything you need to attract what you desire. With this renewed confidence, she began working on the project and noticed something remarkable. Ideas flowed effortlessly. Creativity seemed endless. She finished the work ahead of schedule, and the client was thrilled with the result, even offering extra payment as recognition. This small success was enough to ignite a spark of confidence in Aisha. She began to realize that the law of attraction was not just theory, it was practical, and it worked in very tangible ways. And gradually, the synchronicities began to become more evident. One afternoon, while walking to meet another client, Aisha felt a strange sensation, as if she were being guided. Without thinking much, she diverted from her usual route and entered a side street she had never noticed before. To her surprise, she found a small bookstore that seemed to have come from another time. Upon entering, her eyes were drawn to an old book with a worn cover, The Power of Now. Curiously, Aisha had heard about it before, but never felt motivated to read it. Something inside her said, "This is the moment." She bought the book and began reading it that very afternoon. The words touched her deeply, reinforcing everything Daniel had taught her. She began to realize that the core of transformation was not just about desiring external changes, but also aligning her inner thoughts and feelings. Awareness of her own creative power became clearer with every page. At work, things also began to flow in unexpected ways. New clients appeared, not by chance, but through referrals from people who already recognized her talent. With each contract signed, Aisha felt a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. She knew she was heading in the right direction, but it was still hard to accept that all of this was a direct result of her own energy and intention. Even with these positive signs, Aisha's journey was not without challenges. One day, an important project she had been eagerly anticipating was canceled at the last minute. Frustration hit hard, and the old voice of fear tried to take over. Maybe this isn't going to work for you. Maybe it's just temporary luck. But Aisha had learned something valuable. Every obstacle was an opportunity to redirect her energy. She took a deep breath, wrote in her notebook about gratitude and new beginnings, and instead of feeling defeated, she visualized an even better opportunity. Less than a week later, another job offer appeared, bigger, more creative, and better paid than any previous project. She realized that the cancellation wasn't a failure, but the universe redirecting her towards something even more aligned with her goals. As Aisha's life began to transform externally, the internal change became increasingly evident. She felt more confident, serene, and aligned with her desires. Every decision, every action was made with more clarity and less fear. One of the most significant changes occurred in her social circle. People who once seemed distant or disinterested began to approach her. Aisha noticed that her relationships were being attracted based on the energy she radiated. Genuine friendship, mutual support, and connections that truly added value to her life. On one of these occasions, Aisha met Hana, a photographer who shared the same worldview. The friendship developed naturally, but soon became a creative partnership. Together, they began working on projects combining photography and design, resulting in work that caught the attention of larger and more prestigious clients. These synchronicities weren't limited to work alone. Aisha began experiencing small daily manifestations, finding coins along her path, hearing songs that spoke exactly to what she needed at the moment, messages from friends arriving at precisely the right time. Each coincidence seemed to carry a greater meaning, reinforcing the feeling that she was on the right path. Despite all the positive signs, Aisha still had to contend with old patterns of thought. Sometimes she found herself doubting her abilities or worrying about what could go wrong. But this time she turned to the practices she had learned: writing, visualization, gratitude, and, most importantly, faith. And the more she practiced, the clearer it became that the law of attraction wasn't just about desiring material things or external achievements. It was about internal alignment, about vibrating at the frequency of what you wish to manifest. Aisha began to understand that true transformation begins within us. By the end of that month, Aisha's life had changed noticeably. She wasn't just attracting opportunities, she had also become more aware of her thoughts and emotions. Every action was a choice, every thought a step toward her new reality. She began reflecting on everything that had happened: the encounter with Daniel, the subtle signs, the unexpected jobs, the new friendships. Everything seemed to indicate that the universe had heard her request. And for the first time, she understood that she was not alone, that life responded when one was in tune with the universal flow. Aisha knew that there was still a long road ahead. There would be challenges, moments of doubt, and unexpected situations. But now she was prepared, equipped with tools that allowed her to navigate any storm with confidence and clarity. And so, her life began to enter a phase of profound transformations, where each step taken with intention opened doors to opportunities that once seemed impossible. With each new day, Aisha felt that the universe was working in her favor. What once seemed like coincidence was now understood as a series of carefully aligned signs. The stranger who appeared in her life, Daniel, had been just the first catalyst. There was much more to come, and Aisha was ready to receive it.
Have you ever felt that when you open yourself to life, it begins to give back far more than you imagined? That signs multiply and doors start to open almost magically? That is exactly what happened to Aisha in the following weeks. What were once small synchronicities now transformed into concrete events, showing that the universe was not just listening to her requests, it was working to make them happen. After months of daily practice of gratitude, visualization, and paying attention to her emotions, Aisha began to notice tangible changes in all areas of her life. Work, which had once been unstable and undervalued, now turned into a continuous flow of opportunities. Each project that arose was not merely a task to complete, but a direct manifestation of what she wished to attract. A striking example occurred on an ordinary day. Aisha received an email from an international design company, something she had never imagined achieving so soon. They had seen her portfolio online and were interested in hiring her for a high-visibility project. Aisha felt a mix of surprise and joy. She remembered how, only a few months earlier, she had struggled to get a local job and barely managed to pay her bills. But the universe had responded to her dedication. Every visualization, every note in her journal, every positive thought had contributed to making that moment a reality. She accepted the project, and as she worked on it, she noticed that her ideas flowed naturally, as if creativity had been released by an invisible force. And it wasn't just her work that was changing. Aisha's inner energy was different too. She felt lighter, more confident, and centered. Every morning upon waking, she spent a few minutes giving thanks for what she already had and what was yet to come. She began to notice that this simple act of gratitude changed the way others perceived her. Colleagues became more collaborative, clients more respectful, and friends more present. The manifestations began to extend to other areas. Aisha had always dreamed of traveling, but she had never had the financial means or the courage to pursue that desire. Yet, through synchronicities, an unexpected opportunity arose. A childhood friend who had moved to Europe invited her to visit and stay at her home for a few weeks. Aisha felt a mix of disbelief and gratitude. It was exactly the type of trip she had always wished for, exploring new places, experiencing different cultures, and opening her mind to new perspectives. She began planning the trip not in a hurry, but with the certainty that everything would fall perfectly into place. As she prepared, she realized that practicing the law of attraction was not just about materializing specific desires. It was about changing her inner vibration, becoming someone capable of recognizing and receiving opportunities that would have previously gone unnoticed. Aisha began to notice that her heart was more open, that her decisions were guided by intuition, and that fear was no longer her main factor in making choices. And then the challenges came. During the trip preparation, problems arose that could discourage anyone: delayed flights, documentation issues, and unexpected financial matters. But instead of panicking, Aisha once again applied the teachings she had received. She took a deep breath, stayed focused on solutions, visualized everything resolving, and felt gratitude for what was already happening. The result was astonishing. Each obstacle resolved with unexpected ease. The flight was rescheduled at no extra cost, the documents were in order, and she managed to adjust her budget efficiently. Every step seemed guided by a higher force, showing that trust and actions aligned with the right energy produced concrete results. Upon arriving in Europe, Aisha marveled at every experience. She visited cities she had always dreamed of seeing, met inspiring people, and felt a sense of freedom and expansion she had never experienced before. Every moment confirmed that life responded to the vibration she emitted: gratitude, openness, trust, and joy. During this trip, Aisha also reflected on her internal journey. She realized that the law of attraction did not function merely as a means to achieve external accomplishments. It was, above all, a process of self-transformation. By changing her vibration, she not only attracted positive experiences, but also became someone capable of handling challenges with serenity, making conscious decisions, and living with purpose. A remarkable moment in this phase was meeting other law of attraction practitioners. Aisha attended a workshop on manifestation and positive energies and met people from around the world who, like her, were transforming their lives through conscious intentions. Talking with these people reinforced her confidence. She was not alone, and her experiences were part of a larger pattern where the universe always responds when we are clear about our desires and consistent in our actions. Over the weeks, Aisha also noticed something incredible. The small daily manifestations continued to intensify. Coins found on the ground, messages arriving at exactly the right moment, casual encounters leading to unexpected opportunities. Everything seemed to signal that she was on the right path. And more than that, she began to realize that she could positively influence the lives of others. Some friends and family, inspired by her changes, began practicing gratitude and visualization, reporting surprising results. Aisha felt a deep sense of fulfillment, realizing that her growth not only benefited herself, but radiated positive effects to those around her. Despite all her achievements, Aisha kept her feet on the ground. She knew that the journey of manifestation was not linear, and that life could present new challenges at any moment. But now she had powerful internal tools: awareness, gratitude, visualization, and trust in the flow of the universe. These tools transformed every difficulty into an opportunity, every doubt into a lesson, and every step into a potential manifestation. And so, Aisha's life entered a rhythm of conscious abundance, where each event, opportunity, and encounter seemed carefully aligned with her deepest intentions. She had moved from a phase of uncertainty and despair to a life full of possibilities, learning that true manifestation begins within us. At the end of this phase, Aisha reflected on everything she had achieved: meaningful work, trips that fulfilled long-held dreams, genuine friendships, and a new perspective on life. She knew that every intentional step, every daily practice of gratitude, and every visualization had created the foundation for this transformation. And at this point, she began to realize that the journey was only beginning. The universe had shown its power, but there was still much to learn, many experiences to live, and many more signs to interpret. Aisha knew that by continuing to align her thoughts and emotions with her desires, she could create an increasingly abundant and meaningful reality.
Have you ever noticed that when we are aligned with something greater, the universe presents us not only with gifts, but also with tests? Situations that challenge our faith, patience, and trust, but which, if overcome, strengthen us and confirm that we are on the right path. That is exactly what happened to Aisha. After months of positive manifestations, Aisha began to notice that not everything unfolded without obstacles. Certain events appeared as tests of her true connection with the law of attraction. She realized that manifestation was not just about receiving, but about maintaining trust even in the face of unexpected setbacks. A striking example occurred when a project that seemed guaranteed was abruptly canceled. The client cited internal changes with no prior notice. In the past, Aisha would have felt defeated, thinking life was conspiring against her. But now she decided to apply everything she had learned. She took a deep breath, focused on gratitude for what she already had, and visualized an even better opportunity arising. Less than a week later, an even larger contract appeared, involving an international collaboration with a renowned design company. The project offered not only higher pay, but also visibility and recognition. Aisha realized once again that what had seemed like a loss had turned into a much greater gain, a clear sign of the universe responding to her aligned vibration. Additionally, Aisha's personal relationships began to reflect her growth. Friends and colleagues who had once been critical or indifferent started to approach her, offering support and unexpected opportunities. On the other hand, some people who were not aligned with her energy gradually distanced themselves, as if the universe were helping to clear her environment of negative influences. In one such situation, Aisha received an invitation to join a networking group with other creative professionals. At first, she hesitated. The old voice of fear said, "You don't belong in this group. They are better, more experienced."
But remembering Daniel's words, "The universe doesn't understand words, it understands vibrations," she decided to trust and attend. The meeting was transformative. Aisha met inspiring people who helped expand her vision, offered unexpected collaborations, and shared experiences that further motivated her to believe in her own potential. She realized that often manifestation depends as much on our openness as on our intention. If we are not receptive, even clear signs can go unnoticed. Meanwhile, Aisha also began noticing small synchronicities that seemed like simple coincidences but carried deep meaning. A letter received by mistake contained words that resonated perfectly with her current life moment. A book found in a local bookstore contained passages that answered questions she didn't even know she had. Every detail seemed carefully orchestrated, confirming that she was in the right flow. Even with all these confirmations, Aisha faced internal challenges. There were days when doubts arose. What if I'm interpreting everything wrong? What if it's not real? But she had learned that the true practice of the law of attraction doesn't require constant external proof. It's about internal trust, about believing even when nothing seems visible. One critical moment occurred during a work trip to another city. Aisha felt anxious and a little insecure, fearing that something might go wrong. But upon arrival, she realized that all the pieces fit perfectly. Transportation was organized, meetings occurred as planned, and new professional contacts emerged unexpectedly. This experience served as a powerful reminder that manifestation works even when we cannot see the complete path. The universe guides each step according to our energy. Additionally, Aisha began to notice an unexpected effect. Her own confidence and transformation started to inspire others around her. Close friends began practicing gratitude and visualization, reporting positive results in their own lives. Aisha realized that manifestation is not only about personal desires, but about how our energy can positively impact the lives of others. Another significant point was her realization that the law of attraction didn't work only for material or external goals. Aisha began focusing on intentions related to emotional health, balance, and well-being. She practiced daily meditation, wrote about her feelings, and sought moments of introspection. By aligning her internal energy, she noticed that situations that once caused stress were now approached with calm and clarity, demonstrating that true manifestation begins within us. It was in this internal balance that Aisha began attracting even greater opportunities. An international client interested in a long-term partnership reached out after seeing her portfolio on social media. Another creative project involved travel and cultural experiences that combined learning and pleasure, exactly the type of experience she had desired but had never dared to realistically imagine. At the same time, Aisha began noticing subtle signs from the universe, small details that reinforced her connection with the energy of manifestation. A bird landing on her windowsill during a moment of reflection, a song starting to play just when she needed words of encouragement, messages from friends arriving at exactly the right time. All these signs reminded her that she was being guided and supported. Despite all the progress, Aisha knew that maintaining consistency was essential. Each daily practice of gratitude, visualization, and alignment of thoughts became a powerful tool for continuing to attract positive experiences. She learned that manifestation is not magical in the sense of happening without effort, but rather a dance between intention, action, and energy. By the end of this phase, Aisha reflected on all that she had achieved. New projects, genuine friendships, enriching experiences, and most importantly, a profound internal transformation. She realized that the true magic of the law of attraction was not just in external accomplishments, but in renewed trust, mental clarity, and the ability to create a life aligned with her deepest desires. And so, Aisha's life continued in a rhythm of increasingly impressive synchronicities, testing her faith and reinforcing her connection with the universe. Each challenge she overcame not only confirmed her journey, but also prepared the ground for even greater manifestations yet to come.
Have you ever experienced that moment when everything finally seems to fall into place? When every choice, every thought, and every action seem to converge to create results that once seemed impossible? That is exactly what happened to Aisha after months of consistent practice of the law of attraction. Aisha began to notice that her life was entering a phase of deep and lasting transformations. What were once small synchronicities and isolated manifestations now solidified into a concrete and expansive reality. One of the first signs of this new phase occurred in her work. A major international client who had previously seemed distant reached out, offering a long-term partnership. The project not only involved a significant budget, but also allowed Aisha to travel to other countries, experiencing new cultures and expanding her network in remarkable ways. She remembered the early weeks when any opportunity seemed like a distant dream. Now everything unfolded naturally. The confidence she had cultivated, the daily practice of gratitude, visualization, and inner alignment, all of this translated into tangible results. At the same time, her personal life also reflected this transformation. Aisha began to attract friendships and relationships that truly added value to her life. People who had once seemed distant or indifferent now approached her, guided by energetic affinity and shared interests. She realized that her choices and her internal vibration were shaping not only what she received, but also who entered her life. A particularly significant moment occurred during a trip to attend a creative designers conference. Aisha met renowned professionals who recognized her for the work she had been doing online. This external validation was accompanied by new opportunities, invitations to speak, collaborations with international brands, and projects combining innovation and purpose. While experiencing these external achievements, Aisha also continued to work on her internal growth. She dedicated time to meditation, writing, and reflecting on her emotions, ensuring that her vibration remained aligned with her deepest desires. She learned that it was not enough to simply attract opportunities, it was essential to remain in tune to receive what was being offered. The manifestations were not limited to professional or material achievements. Aisha began noticing changes in her health, energy, and emotional well-being. She felt lighter, more energized to face challenges, and experienced a genuine joy that had once seemed distant. Each day became an opportunity for learning, growth, and expansion. Moreover, the synchronicities that had once been subtle began to manifest in extraordinary ways. On one occasion, Aisha was walking through the city when she came across an art exhibition that spoke exactly to the themes she had been reflecting on in her visualizations. In another situation, a casual encounter at a cafe led to a consulting contract for an international brand, something she had never imagined achieving so soon. These experiences reinforced her understanding that life responds directly to her energy, faith, and clarity of intention. Each manifestation was proof that when we are aligned with the universe, it conspires in our favor in ways far beyond what we can imagine. A crucial point of this phase was realizing that the law of attraction is not just about superficial desires or external accomplishments, but about creating a full, balanced life aligned with our essence. Aisha realized that her true transformation lay in the ability to live consciously, aware of her power and responsible for every choice and emotion she cultivated. She also began sharing her experience with others, inspiring friends, family, and colleagues to practice gratitude, visualization, and attention to their own vibration. Some began reporting significant changes in their lives, showing that Aisha's transformation was creating a positive ripple effect around her. While experiencing these manifestations, Aisha faced moments of deep reflection. She often asked herself, "Do I deserve all this? Is it really real?" But looking back at every step of her journey, from the small signs to the major achievements, she realized that consistency, daily practice, and unwavering faith had shaped every result. She understood that deserving was not a matter of luck, but of being aligned with her own inner power.
Another important milestone occurred when Aisha achieved an old dream, organizing her first solo design exhibition. The event was a success, attracting the attention of critics, colleagues, and potential clients. More than external recognition, this achievement represented the materialization of her dedication, focus, and trust in the law of attraction. During this phase, Aisha also developed a valuable skill, the ability to interpret signs from the universe. Every synchronicity, every unexpected encounter, every miraculous opportunity was recognized as part of a larger pattern. She learned to trust her intuition and discern when to act and when to wait. Aisha's life, which had once seemed limited and full of uncertainty, now expanded in all directions. The flow of opportunities, connections, and positive experiences became increasingly constant. She realized that true manifestation goes beyond desire. It is a process of conscious co-creation where every thought, emotion, and action contributes to building a reality aligned with our deepest desires. Above all, Aisha understood a fundamental lesson. The law of attraction is not about luck or chance, but about personal responsibility and energetic alignment. When we are in tune with our desires, cultivating gratitude and trust, the universe responds consistently and powerfully. At the end of this phase, Aisha reflected on her journey. From the first steps of writing and visualization, through the small signs to the major manifestations and extraordinary opportunities. Every challenge, moment of doubt, synchronicity, and achievement had contributed to shaping a more confident, powerful, and purpose-aligned version of herself. She knew this journey was far from over. New experiences, challenges, and opportunities would continue to arise. But now Aisha was equipped with clarity, faith, and confidence. She had not only transformed her external reality, but had awakened an inner power that would stay with her for life.
Have you ever felt that after all the effort, faith, and dedication, life finally aligns fully with your dreams? That everything you worked for, visualized, and believed in manifests in a concrete and impressive way? That is exactly how Aisha felt as she reached the pinnacle of her journey with the law of attraction. In the months following her last major achievement, Aisha realized that manifestation was not just about what she received, but about who she became in the process. Every experience, challenge, small sign, and major opportunity had shaped her confidence, clarity, and purpose. She was no longer the person who, months ago, felt lost and directionless. Now, she was fully aware of her power to create her own reality. Aisha's work reached a level she had never imagined. International projects, creative collaborations with renowned professionals, and invitations to major events became part of her routine. But beyond external recognition, she noticed the transformative impact her own energy had on others. People were drawn to her life not only for her professional skills, but also for the confidence, positivity, and vibration she radiated. One of the most remarkable moments of this phase was the invitation to organize an international design conference, bringing together professionals from around the world. Aisha knew this was a direct result of all the manifestation practices she had been applying: clear visualization, daily gratitude, alignment with her desires, and unwavering faith in the universe. She accepted the challenge enthusiastically, aware that it would be an opportunity to transform not only her career, but also the lives of everyone attending the event. While preparing the conference, Aisha also dedicated herself to helping others on their own manifestation journeys. She shared her experiences, inspired friends, family, and colleagues to believe in their potential, and demonstrated through real examples that the law of attraction is not just theory. It is practice, daily application, and consistency. Then came the results that consolidated her entire journey. The conference was an absolute success. Participants reported feeling deeply inspired and transformed by the experiences shared by Aisha and other speakers. Collaborations emerged, friendships were strengthened, and unexpected professional opportunities appeared.
All of this reinforced once again that when we are aligned with our desires and vibrate at the frequency of what we wish to manifest, the universe responds perfectly. At the same time, smaller but equally meaningful manifestations continued to unfold in her life. Casual encounters turned into professional collaborations, messages arrived at just the right moment, and learning experiences appeared without planning. Each detail reinforced the sense that everything was interconnected and that the universe was continuously conspiring in her favor. Aisha also noticed that her emotional and spiritual life had transformed. She felt deep peace, absolute confidence in her decisions, and a constant sense of abundance. Each day was lived with purpose, joy, and gratitude, and even the challenges that arose were seen as opportunities for growth and learning. An important part of this transformation was understanding that manifestation is not just about specific desires, but about a shift in consciousness. Aisha now understood that by aligning her thoughts, emotions, and actions with her desires, she created a reality that reflected her inner energy. She did not need to struggle or exert herself desperately. It was about flowing, trusting, and acting in alignment with the energy she wished to attract. During this period, Aisha also began noticing changes in the people around her. Friends and colleagues who had previously doubted her dreams now sought inspiration from her. People facing difficulties began adopting practices of gratitude, visualization, and energetic alignment after seeing the real results Aisha manifested. This reinforced the notion that manifestation is not just personal, it is a force that can positively impact the entire network around us. Furthermore, opportunities for personal growth continued to arise. Aisha participated in courses, workshops, and cultural experiences that expanded her mind and worldview. Each experience was perceived as a gift from the universe, confirming that life responds when we are in tune with our purpose and vibrate at the frequency of what we desire. Then, in one of the most memorable moments of her journey, Aisha received an offer to open her own design studio, a space combining creativity, innovation, and connection with international clients. This opportunity was not just a professional project, it was the materialization of all her efforts, thoughts, and intentions accumulated over months of consistent practice of the law of attraction. The studio's opening was both a symbolic and real milestone in her life. She welcomed friends, partners, and clients, and every smile, compliment, and tangible expression of recognition served as a reminder that the universe responds to those who trust and act with intention. Aisha realized that her life had finally been completely transformed, from doubts and uncertainties to a reality of abundance, confidence, and full fulfillment. Reflecting on her entire journey, Aisha understood something essential. The power of manifestation lies not only in what we receive, but in who we become along the way. She became more conscious, more aligned with her essence, more confident and capable of facing any challenge with serenity and clarity. Every obstacle she faced, every moment of doubt, and every challenge was a lesson contributing to this complete transformation. And so, Aisha's story reaches a culmination point. Her life transformed in ways she had never imagined. And it all began with a simple decision: to trust the universe, align her energy, and practice gratitude daily. Now it's your turn. If you read this far, share in the comments a word that represents how you felt while reading Aisha's story. Was it inspiration, gratitude, hope? Choose your word and inspire others to believe in the power of the law of attraction. And don't forget to share what stood out most to you in the story. We want to know how this journey impacted you.